I want to start with a little game segment. I'm going to give you a picture of a painting, and I would love it if you can give me an express TED talk on that painting. Assume you're teaching this painting as a case study in a classroom. So this is the painting, and I would like to know who's in the painting, what's being depicted, what are the symbolism, motifs, and what does that tell me about those times?
Very conveniently, this is a picture from one of my books, so this isn't very difficult as a task. So the thing is, when we talk about history, it isn't just the records and the files and the paperwork that exists, or even the inscriptions and the monuments. There is a lot of art that can guide how you understand the past, because people in the past, just as we today on Instagram, we're constantly, with every picture we post, we're sort of self-fashioning. We're creating an impression of ourselves that is idealized and that is for the world. Even when we put up candid pictures, we think about it. We're like, this candid picture I'll put. We're not going to put up pictures of us digging our nose, right? There's always going to be, there's a degree of performance involved in images. And historically also, historical figures understood the fact that images tend to be something that can really communicate powerful ideas and have meaning. So this image is from one of my books called False Allies. And on the face of it, it's a married couple. It's a Maharaja of Mysore in the early 1900s with his wife. She's wearing, it's done by Raja Ravi Varma, who was the go-to art portrait maker at the time, very fashionable society painter. She's dressed, the Maharaja's wife is dressed in the typical Mysore silk sari, etc. And this later became a print. It was very popular during the Maharaja's reign. People would hang it in their houses, etc. But there is a bigger story that this image is telling. For example, on the one hand, this awkwardness between them, you can think of it as an arranged marriage situation where the couple have just practically met, and that's the source of the awkwardness. But more importantly, it also tells a story about caste and dynastic aspirations, because the Mysore royal family were Vadiyars from South India in Karnataka. This lady actually isn't Kannadiga. She's actually a Rajput woman from Gujarat. And that's the story the painting really tells, which is, at least from a historian's perspective, by the late 19th century, the Mysore Maharajas, even though they were a South Indian dynasty, etc., typically they used to marry local women from local communities and caste groups. But by the late 19th century, they had a desire to acquire brides from a pan-Indian sort of stage, and especially from Rajput families, because they started fashioning themselves as Rajputs who happened to have migrated to South India at a certain point. It's a bit of myth-making. All dynasties do that. They always claim glorious origins, etc. And therefore, the royal family is very keen to start acquiring Rajput brides. Mm-hmm. The problem was that when they first sent emissaries to North India, to Rajputana, Udaipur, Kota, Rewa, all of those families, the major Rajput states, the Rajputs said, actually, we don't recognize you as Rajputs. You're South Indians. We don't see you as equals. Even though Mysore was politically superior, it was a wealthy state, etc., the Rajputs, at a caste level, and in terms of acknowledging the Mysore family as gold standard Kshatriyas, the Rajputs were not keen. But because the Maharaja's mother was very keen that he must have a Rajput bride, eventually the quest led them to Gujarat, because Gujarat also has the Saurashtra Rajputs. And there they found one particular Rajput prince who was willing to give them his daughter. Now the difference is Mysore was a 21-gun salute state, which is the topmost category of Indian princely states. It was one of the wealthiest states in India. It was one of the most prestigious gaddis or thrones to hold. And this lady's father actually came from a microscopic territory in Saurashtra. I think they had 3,000 subjects, only a few tens of thousands of rupees in revenue, practically non-entities, not major princes at all. But because the Mysore family was so anxious for Rajput blood, they forgot about the fact that, forget that this woman's kingdom is tiny, that it's not equal status politically, they just wanted that Rajput blood. And for that reason, the Rana of Vana's daughter ended up coming to Mysore and marrying the Maharaja. There was all kinds of complications involved. People here didn't like it because they said, this is a foreigner, she's not local, she doesn't speak Kannada. How are how the couple going to live? Because he's a vegetarian, she's a non-vegetarian. He speaks Kannada, she speaks another language. So there were all of these complications. And again, in marriages like this, these were never just private affairs. As I said, the marriage itself was political, dynastic, etc. In other princely states, we actually have cases where even when the marriage was consummated, so in Travancore, when the Maharani and her husband would sleep together was decided by astrologers and the court. So you had no sense of privacy. It wasn't like, I'm feeling it today and I'm going to go into my wife's bedroom. No. The astrologer will tell you such and such muhurtam is good for conceiving an heir to the throne, and this is when you will go to your wife's bedchamber. So there was a rule, and there were rules and protocols around it. In this case, even the British got involved because apparently who was the viceroy then? Lord Curzon. Lord Curzon's private papers, you actually find letters where he's getting complaints from the court of Mysore saying the Maharaja refuses to see his wife. After a year, they've still not consummated the marriage. She's in tears and she's suicidal, etc. And for all practical purposes, the marriage doesn't yield any benefits in that she ends up living in a different palace, he ends up living somewhere else, and they don't have children. Which is why this painting is also in many ways ironic, because this lady was imported from Gujarat to bring Rajput blood into the Wadiyar dynasty's veins, except that there were no children, and therefore the next Wadiyar was also the Maharaja's brother's child, who was again local. I think he also married a Rajput lady, but that marriage didn't last either. And again, his children were also born from a local lady. And it's only in the 21st century, actually, that the heir of the Mysore family ended up marrying a Rajput princess. And finally, in the 2020s or whatever, they've got Rajput blood in their veins. So in many ways, this painting reflects a 100-year aspiration of sorts for a South Indian dynasty to acquire Rajput status and Rajput blood in their veins.